Okay. So today I'm just going to do a brief introduction, maybe brief introduction into Node.js. So Node.js is a server-side or a generic application JavaScript platform. So it actually runs on the Chrome V8 JavaScript engine, but it doesn't run inside the browser. This is sort of a generic programming environment, which means that you get a lot more than what you would with JavaScript inside the browser. You can access files, you can open up sockets and communicate with random machines on the internet. You can, there are no security restrictions that you get inside the browser of JavaScript. So connect to databases, all sorts of things which we'll talk about. It's heavily reliant on event-driven I/O. Again, what we were talking about before was blocking I/O. Node.js is very much asynchronous and waiting on events to send receive data, get those kinds of things. Generally, it's single-threaded, but relies on events to sort of interleave all of these events asynchronously. It's generally very fast, and it gives us a lot of conveniences in that we're having JavaScript on both the server and the client. And so whenever we're communicating, we can easily move things in JSON by just using JSON.stringify, JSON.parse. We don't really have to change our thinking that much between how this language works versus this one. It's very much sort of a holistic experience. We're thinking in the same way on both sides of the problem. All right. So I already mentioned this. JavaScript and browser very constrained. In the browser, you have limited I/O flexibility. Node.js doesn't have those constraints. And generally, it's equivalent to most other programming languages that you program on your computer with. Most of the things that you would in those environments. All right. So it's a very simple Node.js hello world example. Just console.log hello world. Maybe that's not that exciting. So we're going to try to go through at least an example of setting up a server here in a second, and making a request to it, and also try to walk through what all is involved with setting up Node. But first, this is a more reasonable hello world application for Node.js. And just to kind of walk you through what's going on here. So this first part is using this require function, which if you programmed in other languages, is very much like include, the way that you import other JavaScript files. If you'll recall in HTML, we actually just use script tags to embed other scripts inside of our web pages. We're not using JavaScript with a web page on the server, so we need a mechanism to import other pieces of that code. So this is how we do that. I'm going to go, I'll cover the details of how that works a little bit, so you can see how I require functions, and how you can use it. So in this case, we are importing what is called, I guess it's a module, package. I can't remember what the word is for it that they use in Node.js. But this is Express. Does anyone have any experience with Node at all coming into this? Valentine? Okay. So Valentine, if you've used Node, I'm sure you used Express, right? Can you explain real quick what Express is? Right. So basically an API that you use for routing or serving up different types of web content using HTTP at different paths. You're gonna get very familiar with Express. It's the primary primary package that we use for creating web applications with Node. Um, so this is just finding a constant for what we're going to use. All right, so we're instantiating Express here. So this thing app is our instantiated Express instance. And so what we can do is we can call app.get /, so this is the path that we're actually programming for. So if we go to our website and then / nothing else, it'll make an HTTP GET request, and then this will be the route that gets called for that. And so whenever this route gets called, we have an event. I have a callback here, so function. This is the request, and this is the response. So the request has different types of metadata from the request, different options that might have been set. If we have HTTP headers that are specifying things like cookies or what kind of browser we're making the request with, those kinds of metadata will be inside of the request. The response is basically the object that we use for specifying what we want to return to the client that is accessing the server. So in this case, it's very simple. We're saying respond with hello world. It's just the text hello world. It's not an HTML file. It's just plain text. And then we instantiate our app here once we've set up all our routes. Call it listen. So if you've worked with sockets before, this is setting up a socket to listen on port 2000. And this is a success callback. So maybe it might also be an error callback. I'm not 100% sure. But in this case, we just say once it's running, that the app is listening on this port. At that point, this execution falls out and the server is running. And anytime we get a GET request here, it'll return with hello world. Anything else will probably not respond. If anything meaningful, will probably get an error. Okay, so this is a very basic example. I'm going to try to go through the steps of how we get this example running. So I'm going to get out of the PowerPoint. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're working with Node is go to Node.js.org. And you're going to want to download the Node environment. There's a Node environment for every platform out there. I typically do development on Windows. It's pretty solid. You can do Linux, Mac. There's probably others. But go ahead and download. I'm for the purposes of this semester, I'm going to be using version 12, which is the long-term support version of Node right now. There's bleeding edge stuff in 13, but everything's broken, and we want things that are stable for longer. So we're going to use LTS. So you're going to download that. There's a basic, in this case, there's a Windows installer. I'm not sure what you would do in Mac exactly. I haven't done it. And then Linux. I'm sure with Linux you actually would use like a package manager, like apt or Yum or whatever your flavor is. So you can install Node that way. Download Node, install it. The other thing that I am going to highly suggest that you use for developing Node is to use VS Code. You don't have to. You can use whatever editor you like, but VS Code has a lot of nice things, and I'll show you some of those today. So you can download and install that. And you also, for Node to work on VS Code, you have to have it installed on your system independently. It doesn't come with VS Code. So, all right. So, what do we need to do in order to create a Node project? Well, let's see. I'm just going to create a new folder. Let's call it Hello World. I'm going to open up command line. I'm going to show command line and VS Code today, so that you kind of can see both. But generally, there are things with Node that you have to use command line for. Just a very simple set of examples. Let me see if I can blow this font size up here for you, so you can actually read this. Font. Okay. Can people read this? Yes? No? Yes? Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to desktop. I'm going to go to hello world, maybe, wrong slash. All right, so if I want to create a project in here, we're going to have to use a utility that comes with Node called npm, which stands, I believe, for Node Package Manager. So to set up our project initially, we'll say npm init. So this is sort of an automated little script that sets up our Node project. It's going to ask you some questions about your project. Defaults will probably be fine for you here initially. So we're going to go ahead and install, say that our package name is hello world, which just hit enter for the default. It's a version for this project, so again, we can start with 1.0, that's fine. Simple example. Entry point. So this entry point is like the default start script for your app. So index.js will be that. You can specify something else if you wanted to. I'm fine with this. Don't worry about test command. You can just hit enter. If you have it set up with a Git repository, you can specify one here. If you don't. Keywords, if you don't. You can say your name if you want to. License, let's say MIT. All right. So what this little script actually does is it sets up this package.json file that is telling us that it's getting ready to output that. So basically, this is just some metadata about what is in our project. So this is in JSON, but we have the name of our project, version description. This is like a test script, which we didn't specify. My name, license, this is default information. But this is just like a default setup. This is okay, hit yes, yes. All right, so we have package.json. So we have a very empty project. Now, one thing that we need to do whenever we create a project is we need to import some of the modules that we're going to use with our project. We also use npm for this. So basically, this is very similar to like a Linux package manager, except this is specifically for Node. There's a huge online repo of different packages that work with Node. So if we want to install Express, which we're going to use in this, what we'll say is npm install Express. I'll show you where you can find more packages that you'll be interested in using. One thing to know about Node is that a lot of the functionality that you're going to use comes out of these modules that you load from npm. One side effect of this is that all of these packages are sort of like community driven. They're all sort of based out of GitHub. So they all have crazy names. And so, whereas if you're using something like Java, like you might have like Servlet app or some sort of class name that makes sense for the thing that you're going to use. Almost everything in Node has some sort of fun name like Express or Mongoose or Passport or and so there's a lot of names that you're going to have to like sort of internalize and familiarize yourself with. But Express is the one we're hearing about right now. Okay, so what this will do is this will actually download and install Express within our particular project here. One other option that we're going to want to add is --save, which what that will do is save that we need this package inside of our package.json file. So that whenever we init this project in another space, we just hit, I think we just say npm install, it'll automatically bring down all the packages that we need. We don't have to say npm install each package. We'll just remember which ones we're using. --save. And this will actually download quite a bit of other modules that are dependencies for Express. This happened no problem. Something to know now, though, is whenever we look at our project directory, we now have a directory called Node modules. If we go in there, there's actually all of the packages that are dependencies for Express are in here. Express is also in here. And there'll be quite a bit of different pieces of code inside of all these packages. You don't really have to worry about what's in here. This is just APIs and packages that are installed by the package manager. All right. So at this point, I'm going to swap to VS Code, just to start working on editing. So we can just say open folder. Where's my desktop? We can just say open hello world. All right, and so this is our empty project that is open here. Let's see if I can bump up the font size for you a little. Font size. Let's just change this up to like 24. All right. So can y'all read this? I mean, bigger. A little bigger. Okay. So, okay, we'll go with this. All right, so we're going to create this hello world application that I was showing a little while ago. So we need to create the index.json file. So we'll just create a new file here. Say index.js, not JSON, JS. All right, so I'll go and copy the code that I had here. All right, so we have this very basic
program. Okay, so to run this, we can click on debug and we can say run without debugging. Hopefully this functions. Oh no, we have an error. Let's see, console.log. Oh, there is a problem with my code. I don't have a closing parenthesis. I think this should be more right. Oh. I did actually test these yesterday, but evidently there are still problems. So run without debugging. We say allow access. This is just saying, can I open the ports and listen on this particular thing? So, okay, so we have path listening on $sign port. Probably don't want to have that. We can just say plus port. All right. There's whenever you're running this, there's a little control sequence up here, or control buttons. Okay, so the app is running on our machine. All right, if we want to go see it work, we can go to localhost port 3000. So localhost just says that I'm connecting to my local computer, if you don't know what that is. It's also the equivalent IP address, which is 127.0.0.1. I'm sure many of you have seen that before. All right, so we go there, and boom, we have hello world. So this is, we have a little HTTP server running, serving up what we want. And this is a very basic hello world application. The other way, and just to show you how to do it in the console if you want to run your program, you can just use the Node command and then just say what file is your starting one and say, so index.js. And so again, your app will start running, and then you can just run it like you would any other program from command line. All right. So, what do I have in the next few slides? Okay. All right, so I'm going to try to, I think anytime that you do any development, it's very important that you know how to actually debug programs that you're working on, because especially with these like distributed ones, if they're not behaving how you expect them to be, it can be pretty hard to figure out what's going on if you're not using the debugger. So VS Code has a very good Node debugger built into it. I'm going to show you how to use that. This isn't running anymore. All right. So if we go to debug and we say start debugging, your program's just going to start how it normally would. We're listening on port 2000. But say we wanted to understand what's happening whenever we're responding to a particular page being loaded. We can put in a breakpoint right here where this this route handler gets called, and then we hit refresh here. Okay, so we're getting a breakpoint on our call here, and then we can inspect some of the different objects that we have access to, and we can look at what's going on and see why something we have maybe isn't working the way that it's supposed to be. We can also be able to see the call stack, which is over here, so you can look at all of the different code that's actually inside of the Node packages that I'm using, in case you're interested in what's going on there. But okay. So that's how that works. And then we'll say resume. And something to know, whenever you're debugging these kinds of applications, if we put a breakpoint inside of our .get function here, that's like holding up all the works, right? So browser can't load that page. It's just like waiting for the server to respond. Meanwhile, our server is like stopped on a breakpoint. So timeouts can start happening, in which case the browser will think that your server's dead. So just know that sometimes it's good to be quick with your debugging if you're like hoping for things to keep working. If there's a timely part of your application where things can start breaking, if you can break, there's a breakpoint long enough, just know that will happen. All right. And also, just to give you an idea of how you can debug this if you're not using VS Code. So there's an inspect option for the Node program. So if I type node --inspect index.js, so the inspect option being the object or the option of importance there. So I hit that. Basically, this opens up like a network connection that another program can connect to, and it has an API for basically debugging your application. So, in my experience, the best tool for doing that is actually Chrome. So if we go to Chrome / inspect, I believe. Maybe the wrong slashes. Okay. So if we open this, there's a little link right here that says open dedicated DevTools for Node. So click on that. And all right. So it's actually already connected to my Node application right here. It's Node.js. And so I can open that up. It's like automatically detecting these things. I can go inspect the code. So this is the code that I wrote for the application. I can put breakpoints in here. So again, similarly, if I go reload this, it'll break side of this inspector, and I can look at the call stack, just showing up over here, and I can hover over things to look at what the values of different variables are. Okay, I'm gonna let this run. So that's two ways that you can debug your Node applications. Please use the debugger. You don't have to make a million console.log statements to debug your programs. You're welcome to do that, but if that doesn't work and you're still confused, please use the debugger. Any questions about debugging? People have used debuggers before, right? That's something that y'all have done as CS students? Maybe? Use debuggers. Makes your life easier and faster. I don't know how many nights as an undergrad that I sat there writing cout statements, just wondering what the hell was happening, and then opening up a debugger and solving my problem in 5 minutes. So use a debugger, it'll make your life easier. Okay. Okay, so we talked about installing Node, using npm init to set up our package.json, installing npm packages, running Node programs, and debugging Node programs. These are the critical activities that you're going to have to do. All right. If you want to learn more about Node, there is a
basically an API reference for everything that's built into Node itself. This doesn't include Node packages like Express or any of the ones that we're going to talk about. But if you're interested in just like what are the APIs provided by Node itself, this is where you want to go.
If you're using a package and you're not sure about how to use it,
you want to go to npmjs.com, which is the website that has for NPM. You can search for any of the packages that you're using, and there's documentation for how they work.
So let me just show you that. Okay, so if you go to npmjs.com, and then if you're looking for a particular package, so I can just type Express, and that's the one we're interested in. So this is actually probably parallels a lot with like the READMEs from GitHub from the Express project. But usually there'll be examples in here, there'll be documentation for all the different options for these frameworks. Express also has its own dedicated API, which I'll show you in a bit. But there's lots of different documentations for different things in here. Let's see, and there's lots of, I'm assuming that there's like, yeah, so there's lots of different
NPM packages for different things. There's like, all sorts of different Facebook packages. I'm sure you can find all sorts of interesting packages to use.
So, whenever you're thinking about like your projects towards the end of the semester, take a look around at NPM, see what kind of code there is to be using. It'll make your life a lot easier. Okay. So that's how to look up more things. All right, I'm going to try to explain some more of the foundational things of Node and Express that you need to know about. The first one is we're going to go back to talking about how Node modules work. So this is the include mechanism that I was talking about before, where you use the require keyword to bring in code that's in external files. So this uses, whenever you require something, it uses this Node functionality. So whenever you're writing code and you're wanting to use multiple files to break out things, this will be what you want to do. So basically, whenever you require another file, what happens is it opens that file, it parses it, and then it returns this module.exports object for that particular file. So if I say, let's say, I think I have the code on the next page, but so we said whatever we want to come back from our include as this module.exports object. In this case, this is just a JavaScript object with a Mongo key, and then another object with some big options here. So if I require that,
is the module related to the module folder, the Node module folder?
No,
because we did an npm install on Express.
So whenever you do the npm install, basically that'll bring down a package inside of that Node modules folder. The the file that is like the head file of that package will have this kind of code in there. It'll have a module.exports, so this, in the case of Express, that would probably be like a function that initializes the Express object and returns that. And then you start, then you can use that object to actually use Express. In this case, we're just returning an object. Basically, this is a keyword in Node that basically says that whenever someone includes this file, this module.exports, that is the object that they're going to get whenever they include this file. So let me just go to the next slide and show how this works. So
assuming this file is called, I think, config.js, if we call require on, there should actually be quotes here. If we call require on config.js, this will return the object from the previous file, right? So this config object will be this object here with the brackets. It'll return this object to config, and then I can use whatever is in that object in this file now. And just as an example, okay. So is that clear or a little confusing?
How do we know the last one is called config.js?
Because it would be in a file called config.js. I just didn't. So assuming what was on the previous slide was in a separate file called config.js. This is just loading that file.
Is the config.js, that's local, right? That's inside.
Yes, so that's the local file.
But when we did a require express, it wasn't. It was connecting to an API.
So it will search inside the node modules file as well for things. So if I say include or require express, it'll look both in node modules. It'll also look like in the directory that all of my code is in. So you could make other directories where you would list out those here. If you want to do that, node modules is just a subdirectory for where npm puts all of your like downloaded packages basically. But require will look in both places.
What would happen if you have an express.js or express file locally, but you wanted one?
I would assume that it would default to your the one that you wrote specifically in your package or in your project, but I'm not 100% sure. I would generally stay away from naming things the same name as packages that you use. All right. Okay. This include mechanism is a little bit strange. This is just sort of make a look at it.
I thought you can change the slide because I didn't see it, but then you did it while I was away.
Okay, so this is still the same code that we had before. However, if I say config.port equals 8888, that's going to change. But if I change a value that was inside of the object that I got from this require, it changes that object. If I call require again, it actually uses the cached object from before. It doesn't reinstantiate everything. So if I call this from either later in my own file or in your Vector file, basically the values, it uses the same object by reference in all of those cases. So any changes that I make inside of config, or if I load express in multiple different files, it's the same instance of express. It's not, doesn't create a new one every time I call require. So it uses the cached version. So in this case, if I say the port, if I output the port, this should actually be config.mongo.port, not config.port. In this case, if I actually output the new port, after calling require again, it'll be that new port number because I'm using the same object in both cases. So in addition to using objects, remember in JavaScript, functions can be passed around as objects. So
if I say that the module that exports gets a function, then whenever I import or require that file somewhere else, I get a function that I can call. So in this case, just simple Fibonacci recursive function, but yeah, so in this case, if I required whatever file this was, I would get a function. Is that clear? Makes sense? No? Getting a whole lot of confused looks from some people. Okay, so that's how modules work. Yeah.
A way that you can make two objects.
That get returned by the require. The way that I would do that would be to create an object that has like two different objects inside of it. So like if I had a curly bracket, object 1 colon, and then object 2 colon, curly bracket. So that would return like two different things. So that object can be as complicated as you want. But it is only one thing. So we have to have multiple things inside of one thing. All right. The modules, this will be the primary way that you sort of like organize your code. It is very tempting with Node to basically just shove everything in one huge file. Because especially with like Express, you just like start listing out like different routes and things like that. It's very tempting for it to just like blow up into like thousands of lines of code. You can get creative with modules that you can organize your code in a more meaningful way. All right. So this is the same example. However, you can use Express to just serve static files. So in this case, we're dynamically responding with some set of code or some value that's programmatically computed. However, we can use, this is what's called a middleware for Express, where we say that basically anything in the public folder gets served up as a static file by our server. So you just have like static HTML files or JavaScript files that you want to use client side or CSS files. You can put that all in a public folder and then say express.static, and it'll just serve those files up for you for your client application. So I can demonstrate how that works. So I make a public folder, and I make hello.html. Okay, save this. I go back here. I say app.use express.static. And I say public. Okay. And then I run it. Yep. Should work. Oh, I think I'm already running. If you get an error address already unused, it's probably because you're running the application already, so you need to make sure to close it. That's what happened here. Yeah, address already in use. All right, so let's take that debug. Let's see, debug, start without debugging. Okay, so everything's going. If I say, and then if I go say localhost / hello.html,
I get my static file, static JavaScript, static CSS, static HTML, whatever you want. Is that clear? Does people understand why that's useful? So it's like whenever you ran your personal websites or whenever you hosted them on the university web service, it's just starting up those static files. That's all this is doing. So it's very useful to just host a bunch of static files for your clients to use. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna have a couple more examples of how you can do some more programmatic things with Node and like starting to get into more like dynamic web calls. So, all right. If people remember before, I talked a little bit about forms with HTML and how you can use them to like upload data to a web server. So generally, you do that through post. You create a simple form in HTML. So this is HTML here. This is Node JavaScript. So we create a form with some inputs. So just have name, email, and a submit button with makes an HTTP post, and then get this. An HTTP post to this URL/form submit. So whenever I hit the submit button on this form, it'll send the post request to the server with the data that I entered in my form here. So what do we want to do on the server to actually handle that request and to do work with data that's sent to us? Well, we make an express.post. So before it was .get, so that handles GET requests. So in this case, .post will handle .post request. At the path /form submit, we have a function that handles this with the request and a response. And so here we're just outputting the username and email that was sent to us in this request, and we send back a response to our client that says, success, yay, or we successfully did this. So I can show you how this works. So I'm just going to make a static file with this form in it. So we'll call it form test.html. We'll put, I'll just copy paste to some of this stuff. All right. So this should just say test form with the form below it. Go and save this. And then go back to index.js. We'll add a route for our post request. So what was it? It was form submit, I think. Function request response. And then, no, I am using the wrong braces. All right, and then we just say console log, and so that data that we specified in the form, it gets put inside of the request object. So we can say name plus rec dot user dot name, I believe. I say that plus email plus rec.user.name or email. All right, and then we say rest.send success. Okay. Something actually that we need to include that I didn't mention is I mentioned having to use Express middleware before. So in this case, we have to use another middleware. And so we use this express.url encoded. So what this does is whenever you get a request coming into your Express server, it looks inside of the HTTP headers and body for the request. It sees if it's URL encoded or what's called form encoded. If it is, it takes that data, it parses it, and it sticks it inside of the request object so that you can access it. If you don't have this, that data will not be put inside of the request object, and you won't be able to access it without like manually parsing the HTTP request. So that's why we're using middleware in this example. So I'm just going to copy pasta this. Put it up here with this other middleware. And this only gets triggered really in the case that we have like form data that is what's called URL encoded coming in. So for other requests, it doesn't really get triggered or do anything. So we put it up at the top of our file. That middleware gets called on every request that comes in, makes that check. Okay, so debug, run without debugging. Hopefully this runs. Oh, I have index.js at 16. Oh, I got some like extraneous crap down here. Okay. Okay. So this should be running. So if what do I call it? Form test. So let's see. We'll put this over here. If I go to form test.html. All right. So this is our simple form with the name and email. We'll go ahead and fill that out. We got an error. So what is our error saying? Can't read name of undefined. Oh, I left out .body here in this case. I think that's the problem. So .body is just like the payload of the HTTP request. So everything that the body just is everything that comes after, like all the headers. So I didn't call that correctly. So let's go back. I hit submit again. Okay, so I have success, and it output my name and my email address down here. So what we'll get to in the next few lectures is what do you actually do with this data. You don't just output it. You can stick it into a database. You can use it to do something else, right? So this is the basic mechanism for sending data back and forth between your client, which is running on the browser, and your server, which is running on the network. I'm going to do one more example that's, yeah.
Is this secure?
Is this secure? No. The most baseline thing that you're going to have to do to make this secure is to get it to run over HTTPS. There'll be other things like that you'll want to do to make it secure, like making sure you validate all of your input. So if I just take text directly out of a form and I start doing like database operations with that, you could do things called like injection attacks, where someone can like start typing in like escaped database queries like into these fields, and then like if I don't do like the proper validation or there's like escape things on that data, it'll just like start wrecking my database. This is just like a very baseline way of showing you how to do this communication. You're going to want to do primarily input validation as well as HTTPS, which we'll talk about a little bit later. For basically what HTTPS does is make sure that any kind of data that you're sending over the internet is encrypted, so that people can't just like use Wireshark or some other like man-in-the-middle attack to just like see. But this is just like a very simple example of like how to get data back and forth. That's not secure, but also this is a test application. So okay. So the other thing that I wanted to show you real quick is, so this is doing a post request with form. So last time we talked about how to do about making an AJAX request, which is a client-side JavaScript-based request from JavaScript to a server. So I have a quick example for that. So if you remember before, make this bigger. We use XML HTTP request with post. I can't remember if this is, yeah, so post we do it to the path/car, asynchronous. This is basically just checking for whether or not the response was successful. We don't really need to do that. We're just posting something unless we want to make sure that it got there. But we're not going to do that in this case. So we have some data here, which we encode in a JavaScript object. So if we want to send that to our server, we can say XHR, which is the XML request, send. We send it as JSON, that stringify of the JSON object. Okay. So that's on the client, that's on the browser. So what do we do on the server? Well, we write express.post route here for /car with a function request response. We use a new middleware that checks to see if the body is encoded as JSON. If it is, it parses it, it puts it into the body. And so we can access the make, model, year, color of whatever data was sent to us in that request here, whenever the middleware puts that data inside of our request. So I'll just do a real quick example of how this works, and then I'll let you go. So we're going to create one more static file. Called car test, HTML. Then a copy form here, just as a, just to speed this along. All right, so I'm going to say just div style guests, what is it, background color, white, gray, and then what is it, okay, and then say on click upload car. Okay, so we have a div here. Oh, let's give it some text. All right, now we include this script for this code that we were going to use on client side. So this is the upload car script. That didn't come in very cleanly. Okay. So we just input this JavaScript directly into the HTML here. This is nasty. Don't do this. But okay, so we have this upload car function. We set the onClick handler for our div to upload car. So whenever we click it, it should make this request. We go back to index.js. We'll put in a new handler for receiving our car data. And we also need to make sure to include that middleware that I mentioned, the JSON middleware, which will parse the JSON data coming in through the AJAX column. Okay, so I think that'll work. Let's restart this. Do we got any bugs? No bugs or no execution things. So let's see. Is it car test? Yeah, what was it? Oh, car test.html probably. Okay, so I have my div here, and we have the application running. So I'm just going to open the debugger here for a second so that you can see something when I get this done. Okay, so hopefully this works. So I click upload car. It sends the AJAX request. I receive the AJAX request over here on my server. I parse that data and I output it. So this here, right? So notice, unlike the form, this didn't change the page I was on. I'm still on the same page. I could respond somehow to the response. It changed things based on whatever I got back from the server. Just a real quick thing to call out. If you have the debugger open, see if I go to network, this is tracking all of the different things that are going across the network between my server and my client. So when I click on car, I can see the HTTP request that is getting sent to my server. So I have sort of an overview of standard HTTP headers. So I have response headers, request headers, and I can see the payload I got sent to the server here. So if you're trying to debug something that's going between your server and client, and you're unsure what's happening, you can always look inside the network in the debugger on Chrome and see what's getting sent. All right. Yeah. Who knows what I'm actually recording now? My computer is like adding and disconnecting displays. But okay, so this is using the JSON request. Okay, so if you want to learn more about Express, go to express.js.com. So it's also another API. There's one in the PowerPoint that you can use, or you can just Google search Express API. But it has data about how you use the request response, how you use like the different middlewares for Express. You can see all of this stuff. So that's generally probably basic, but maybe confusing right now. Examples. But hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of how the different pieces connect up.
Next time, we're going to try to cover some of the more detailed pieces of how you would handle things like session, and cookies with Express, as well as like how you would handle like format, like setting up like templates and formatting for your HTML files. The other pieces, but that's what I know right now that we're going to cover next time. We're also going to start talking about future lectures. We'll start talking about how to connect the databases. Using Node, we'll start talking about how you can use WebSockets to do like real-time data between web clients and servers. So you can set up things like chat rooms and things like that. But that's what's coming up next. Any questions about what we covered today? I know there will be questions, so please ask me whatever you need. Yeah.
But can you make it display an image? Not like like if they put in like those.png, so it's like, can you get it to like just display that image?
On like the web page?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if somebody input something like that, you could send your request using probably a GET request via Ajax to the server, which could then dig it up and send you back a response with like the bit stream for that image, which would probably just be like a string or like and then I think you can either set like the image source to that data stream for like an image element on your page. So you could create an image element and set that in there. You could also create a canvas object on your page and then get a graphics content. So yeah, there's some flexibility in these things. You'll see how these things kind of get together, and you can be creative. All right. Well, thanks for paying attention. Hopefully, this more like hands-on demo is useful. I feel like I'm gonna try to do more of those, especially as we're like getting into like doing these server applications. But, all right. I will see you all Wednesday.